This time last year, we dropped a video called Building an Anime Rivals Roster that included the likes of Satoru Gojo, Yuji, and Todo, among many other anime that I love. Will from Manga Animus took part and did an entire section on Hunter x Hunter. And with Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 just dropping its first couple of episodes, Marvel Rivals having its 1-year anniversary last month, and there being an artist on Twitter kicking up some killer art of what a JJK Rivals game could look like, I think now seems like the perfect time to do a pitch on how exactly that could all come to be. This is Jujutsu Kaisen Rivals.
Hey everybody, I'm Will, and I am just happy to be here first and foremost. So huge shout out to Charles for inviting me to do this collaboration. I'm here for the JJK part. I'm kind of a poser when it comes to the Marvel Rivals part, so you guys will have to, bear with me there. But huge shout out to Charles, also to Crimson, who helped a lot with my putting together of this video. But yeah, one thing I want to let everybody know for my anime onlys out there, do not fear. We will be cutting things up into an anime safe portion and then the manga spoilers portion. However, we will occasionally throw up a manga panel, even in the anime portion, but we'll give a little warning when that happens. And in most cases, it's not really like a huge spoiler anyway. So bear with us there.
But before jumping straight into the character sheets, I do want to take a second to go over the artist with the handle @AnGray_21. I have had a list of anime I wanted to do videos like this for, with Jojo, Naruto, and many more. I've got a Google Doc of a complete list. But Anne Gray has done artwork just for so many damn characters that are all like as if they were scraped from the game files themselves. Throughout, you will see their art for said characters, so all I ask is to please head to their Twitter and chuck them a follow and show them all the support in the world.
But let's talk about one of the strongest characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. And no, I am not talking about Gojo Satoru or Sukuna, but of course, Kasumi Miwa, aka Useless Miwa. Now, she is going to be a duelist in Marvel Rivals, and she's actually kind of inspired by Genji from Overwatch, for those of you familiar. So she's going to have a pretty straightforward kit here based around her swordplay, because in JJK, Miwa does not have a curse technique, so instead she relies on basic cursed energy manipulation and her swordplay in conjunction with new Shadow style school techniques. So first and foremost, Miwa's passive is going to be called Useless Miwa, which basically means she will just auto-request healing from her teammates whenever her health is below 50%. Now, her primary fire is just going to be her medium-range swordplay, just getting in there with that thing. And as far as her abilities, the first one is just Jujutsu Agility, and this has no cooldown, but it's basically Miwa having the capability of double jumping and running on walls, again, much like Genji from Overwatch. Now, her second ability is going to be Bato's Sword Drawing, and this will have a low cooldown. And essentially, Miwa will just dash forward and swiftly slash with her katana, damaging any enemy's hit, so she can do AoE with this. And again, this is like Genji's dash from Overwatch. Now, her third ability is the new Shadow style Simple Domain, and this is kind of the most iconic thing she did in JJK. Now, Miwa will stand in place, and a Simple Domain will kind of emit around her. And within this, it will deflect any incoming projectiles or abilities. And in addition to that, any enemies that enter this Simple Domain will be immediately struck by Miwa, dealing damage on impact. However, if Miwa moves at all, this will end the ability. Now, finally, all that leaves is her ultimate, which is just going to be the Binding Vow Enhanced Strike. Now, this is inspired by the moment from the series where Miwa sacrifices all of her future attacks in order to empower one sword strike. So, in Rivals, this will manifest by her getting an incredible boost for 6 seconds to all of her attacks. And afterwards, she will lose the model for her sword and instead only be able to wield her scabbard until she dies. This will have no actual impact on her damage output or anything, but is more so just a fun reference to the fact that in the series, she sacrificed all of her future attacks. So in the game, she'll lose her sword.
Megumi Fushiguro, a child of the Zenin clan who has the 10 Shadows technique. A technique where he can summon animals to assist him in combat. Megumi is a grade 2 sorcerer with very notable fights in fighting against Yuji, where he summons or tries to summon Maharaga, against Todo, where he tries to summon Maharaga, and against this twink, he also tries to summon Maharaga. This guy really is a bum. Anyway, as you know, we've done a couple videos on anime rivals, and doing a dedicated JJK video, for the longest time, I've wanted to revisit the Shadow user, but instead of it, like in the Naruto section where we did Shikamaru, I wanted Megumi to be like a vanguard version of that complements it well. Using Megumi's technique and for his summons in his Shikigami, he could do some really interesting crowd control in fun and interesting ways, while also having so many aspects where I can call him a bum, because while I like the character, I think finding ways to keep up the Megumi slander and agenda alive is just... I like doing it. It's really funny. But what are Megumi's abilities? What you'll find in this video is a lot of characters have unique gimmicks or special things about them that will make them stand out. And for JJK, that fits pretty darn well. In our previous videos on all the other anime, a lot of them, to kind of speed up, we just went, oh, you know, Mr. Fantastic's like Luffy, so imagine that, but this is kind of what they're like. So what that looks like for Megumi, his unique gimmick, is that Megumi's cooldown starts when the Shikigami dies or despawns, not when the ability is used to summon them. It preventing multiple summons of the same Shikigami to be active at the same time, but his passive is the 10 Shadows technique, Rabbit Escape. So whenever like Megumi falls below 25% health, he summons a flood of rabbits that absorb the damage and allow him to maneuver around over the next 2 seconds. Any remaining rabbits despawn 4 seconds after the initial 2-second window. He would have a primary fire of like a medium range sword slash, with his first ability being the 10 Shadows to hide, and that is no cooldown. So after a short charge, Megumi submerges into his 10 Shadows and moves around the floor while like having a boost of movement. I imagine this to be like a vanguard version of Jeff the Shark. For the game as a whole, I imagine there isn't enemy or friendly shadows. It's kind of like when any game copies that paint game on the Switch. Splatoon. Anytime someone copies Splatoon and you can kind of go into the paint, I would have it, any shadow is enterable by any shadow user. Then any characters that can abuse shadows, such as Shikamaru, they can take advantage of that, and that means team-ups can be really, really funny, because if an enemy, like the opposition team, has a Shikamaru, you can almost use that to your own like advantage. But when talking about doing these anime rivals things, this is how I'm always thinking when pitching to the team that we help make these. I want that interactability of kits to be really interesting. And just one small note that I got here on my doc is that it's similar to Jeff's, but without the healing or without the fin indicator. He can't emerge anywhere he wants. It's only at a specific shadow. So that's the balancing part, right? So it's not as strong, but it's stronger here and there, that kind of thing. His second ability would be again 10 Shadows. It would be Divine Dog Totality. Megumi summons a werewolf Shikigami. A Shikigami then lunges and attacks whichever enemy was last damaged by Megumi himself. With his third ability being Nue. He's able to summon a winged Shikigami that can fly around and fires lightning, and that would just hit random nearby enemies, which can also stun them. So that's actually pretty cool. And then his fourth ability, fuck, how many abilities we're giving him, is the Toad. Megumi summons a Toad Shikigami. The Shikigami then swallows the lowest health nearby ally hero, protecting them until destroyed or until the player voluntarily exits. Exiting the Toad will cause it to despawn. Ability 5. Holy crap, Megumi is the Moon Knight of this fucking video. Max Elephant. Megumi summons an Elephant Shikigami. The Shikigami falls from the sky, crushing any enemies underneath for significant damage, after which it stays in place, firing a non-damaging turret of water at the nearest enemy, knocking them away. Any enemies recently hit by the turret receive increased damage from Nue's lightning and increased stun duration for 2 seconds. So yeah, fucking Megumi's way too cool. We need to find something that makes him a little bit more of a bitch. And with his ultimate, it's the 10 Shadows Divine General Maharaga. It has to be. After both videos that we did on Marvel Rivals, Anime Rivals, we keep getting comments about, oh geez, Megumi's ult is the thing we look forward to. The thought of being like a character to being like a I don't even know, like a Ashitaka or something that we had, and you're just going around the corner and then you see Maharaga in front of you. That'd be the scariest bloody thing. Megumi initiates a ritual with the enemy Ace, after which he summons the Shikigami Maharaga, whose first action will be a single strike at Megumi himself, knocking him away and dealing 100% of Megumi's max HP. Mahoraga then pursues the enemy ace until he is destroyed, or until he kills the target, after which he despawns. Mahoraga regenerates 100% of his missing HP every second he receives decreased damage from an enemy for each second in combat with them, while increasing his own damage against an enemy for each second in combat. The big thing to note here is that Megumi can avoid being killed by Maharaga's initial strike by given shield or bonus health that temporarily allows him to be above his 100% maximum, or by being swallowed by just in time with his 4th ability Toad, though it would require perfect timing. The short channel time or the charge time of his first ability Hide means he can't dodge the strike in time. Given all the self-suicide ults we were designing, I won't make Mahoraga like he has to kill Megumi as in order to despawn, just the enemy target. Thematically, let's say Mahoraga just assume Megumi's half of the ritual is fulfilled once he throws his strike, like that kind of thing. And that is all of Megumi's abilities. But I was thinking about his team-ups, and you have to have something for Yuji and Nobara. For this video, we didn't design any team-ups because it's already going to be a really long video, and we're kind of curious what you guys might think could be useful. Most characters somehow have nearly their entire kits here. So whether it be they do more damage, they might get an extra use of one of their abilities. There are not many here that are missing anything. And for people who have seen the other 2 videos we've done on Anime Rivals, if there's a character here that you think would go well in a team up with another character we've already done, please let us know down below. But the big one for Megumi I was thinking about was Shikamaru. I think just the idea of these 2 characters both being shadow users of some kind, I think there's a lot of potential where they can play into each other's kits. Now onto the first duelist of the video, we have Nobara, the girl boss with the attitude who does not get much screen time, but has a really cool technique with a lot of potential. Now, we had a lot of debate with how we wanted to design Nobara. Crimson, who did a lot of the work in actually just designing every single character. In this video, when I had my pitches for, I wrote down how I imagined every character would play. I spoke to him about the concept of a lifesteal mechanic that's in Overwatch that isn't in Marvel Rivals, with her nails and how that could work. You would have to land a nail on a character and then you'd be able to slowly take HP and transfer it to yourself. And I thought that could be cool. That Crimson said the following: we couldn't justify giving her a lifesteal mechanic due to her canon capabilities within the story, and the fact that Marvel Rivals itself doesn't have any examples of self-sustaining duelists, meaning it's likely a poor game design or unfair, and should probably only be done when justified by the character's canon capabilities and theme. More than the 2 previous videos, the sheets way more reflect their canon counterparts. I'm on team, it's a game, it's just make it a game, make the characters work, and make it fun. JJK is really limited in a lot of ways, and I could see a world where it works for Nobara to do that, but for a sheet, we have to just do something far more accurate to the anime. Inside of us, there are 2 walls. One is me going, yeah, let's make it fun, let's make it more like a game, what cool mechanics that could work, and Crimson, who's like, I read the manga a million times, there's no way this is going to work. Just waiting to get to the strategist, that was a nightmare for him, because he's like, no, technically only these characters have RCT. I'm like, fuck, someone needs to fucking heal. But what are Nobara's abilities? Obviously, a long-range nail projection being her thing that she is well known for. The nails from her primary fire can stick onto surfaces and enemies for a few seconds, with her first ability being Hammer Cleave. Nobara does a melee range hammer swing that deals damage and gives her a piece of any enemy hit. Nobara retains pieces from enemies until she dies. Ability 2, Hairpin. Nobara detonates the cursed energy stored within the nails launched by her primary fire, causing them to explode and deal damage to enemies caught in the radius. Damage is additive for enemies caught within multiple explosives, making it particularly effective to stack a couple nails into an enemy from your primary fire, then to detonate. With her ultimate ability being Straw Doll Resonance. Nobara pulls out a straw doll with pieces of her opponents attached to it, then proceeds to strike with a nail, dealing massive damage to all enemies she has a piece of. This ability can only be used if Nobara has at least 1 piece from her Hammer Cleave ability.
Next up, we've got everyone's favorite rice ball enjoyer, Toge Inumaki, aka the curse speech user of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, curse speech is one of the most unique techniques in the series because it means that literally everything Inumaki says is laced with cursed energy, which basically makes everything he says a command that must be followed by those that hear it. Meaning if Inumaki tells you to stop moving, you will have to freeze in place. If he tells you to get crushed, you will get crushed, which is why he largely speaks in rice ball ingredients so that he doesn't accidentally harm any of his allies in his normal day-to-day life. So how are we going to manifest this within Rivals? Well, this one is pretty cool. And first and foremost, his primary fire is just going to be a long-range projectile. And I think it would be cool if this took the shape of like Japanese kanji just like flinging out of his mouth and hitting people. I think that would just be a cool visual for this. But the way his actual technique will work is first and foremost, he will have a passive, which is just called Curse Speech. And Inumaki is going to have an additional meter under his health bar that is his speech limit. And basically, this meter will fill up to varying degrees depending on how he's using his abilities and who he's hitting those abilities on. Basically, the stronger the opponent is that he hits with an ability, the more this meter will fill up. Because in the series, when Inumaki uses Curse Speech, it actually damages his throat. And the stronger the opponent he tries to command, the more damage he takes. So if Inumaki fills up this entire meter in Rivals, he will take some damage and he will actually be locked out of using all of his abilities except one. And that one ability is called Throat Medicine, where essentially Inumaki will just drink some cough syrup and empty his limiter, allowing him to reuse abilities once more. So now, what are his actual abilities? And the first is going to be called Don't Move, and this will be a low cooldown ability where Inumaki commands people in front of him to stop moving, and this will freeze any enemies for 1 second. Now, his next ability is called Get Crushed, and this will have a medium cooldown. Inumaki will speak the command to crush to all of those in front of him, knocking them all down and dealing significant damage to them. And then finally, his ultimate will be called Blast Away. Inumaki will basically command everyone to blast off, and this will summon a large concussive force in front of him, blasting away all enemies and dealing absolutely massive damage to them.
Next up, we got Nanami, which I adore Nanami. He is so cool. In Season 2, he got a massive glow up. The Grade 1 sorcerer who became a mentor to Yuji. The Hatchet technique, the 7 to 3 curse technique, is actually going to be really interesting because at first I was trying to think of a way we could capture Nanami perfectly. And then I had one of those dumb ideas that was like, hold on. You know when you're playing a game of Rivals or Overwatch, and then you have the overtime timer when the clock runs out and you basically have no time. I had the idea that a massive part of his character would be relying upon those moments where he then, on top of being a good character already, would then get a 30% like power boost. And I'm like, that's really cool. But in Crimson's sheet, he made it into, you know, like a balanced character sheet where you don't have to wait for the maybe possibility that your team sucks and it gets to an overtime. But yeah, I had that thought. It's not in the character sheet. So what does Nanami have? All right, his passive would be Black Flash. Nanami has a small chance of his attacks creating a Black Flash, enhancing the damage of that attack. This is for his primary fire or ability by doing a 2.5 times amplifier. Entering a kill streak will increase the odds of landing another Black Flash. Landing a Black Flash will also increase the odds of landing another one, leading to the possibilities of a consecutive chain of Black Flashes. Wow, that was a lot of Black Flashes. His primary fire would be short-range blunt sword cleaves, with his first ability being the ratio technique. Nanami marks an enemy, revealing their weak spots to him to hit for a few seconds, and landing a hit on an enemy while their weak spot is revealed turns it to a critical strike, dealing massive damage. Basically, it's like the thing where you hit trees from Fortnite. His second ability, Collapse. Nanami launches a punch at a piece of terrain or obstacle in front of him, generating a weak point in the environment and destroying it. With his ultimate ability being Overtime, Nanami enters a binding vow with himself, deciding he has gone beyond his normal shift hours and initiates a surge in power, granting him 30% damage, lasting until he dies. Now again, I don't have a team up necessarily thought out, but I thought a character from another anime that could be interesting. I was just like, oh, who could be cool with Nanami? And I was thinking of Kakashi. I just thought like, oh, we've done Kakashi before. He was a duelist. That'd be kind of cool for the two of them to have a team up. I think the dialogue options would be kind of sick. Maybe it means that Nanami can have like an extra ability that basically he can do lightning style as well or something. I think that could be kind of interesting. What do you think? Let me know.
All right, next up, we've got another strategist, and this time it's everyone's favorite or least favorite sociopath, Mahito, who is one of the 4 disaster curses in JJK, which are the most powerful curses in the series. And this is certainly true of Mahito, who has one of the most broken curse techniques in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, and that is idle transfiguration. And essentially how this works is that Mahito can manipulate the soul, both his own soul and others. And in doing so, he can completely transform them, meaning Mahito can give himself wings, he can give himself bladed arms, he can turn himself into an elephant for all he cares, and he can do the same to you. He can turn you into an ant, he can turn you into a mindless drone. The limits are basically only capped by your imagination. This technique is one of, if not the strongest, in JJK.
With the sole exception of Satoru Gojo, of course.
So, it's no doubt that Mahito is a disaster curse. Now, translating this to rivals is a bit tough because that is so broken, but we've cooked up some stuff here. And first and foremost, I believe Charles has cooked up a unique idea for how Mahito's health will work, because in JJK, only people that can damage the soul can truly damage him. So I might let Charles butt in here and explain more about how that works.
Okay, thank you for the segue, Will. Look, I'm gonna be real. So we never wrote down anything for Mahito's health thing. It just says on the Google Doc, Charles' health thing. So that doesn't really say much. We started the initial work on this video for characters like Mahito over 9 months ago. So when it came to introducing Mahito to the roster, and we were talking about like, oh, well, in the anime, it has to be soul damage to do any damage to him. How would that translate? So I don't have any specifics, but I'm going to do my best to try like nail down the kind of vision that we had. But the terminology that we have been using, I'm going to be a little lax on that because characters have in Marvel Rivals a base health, whether it be 350, and then for Vanguards, they sometimes have an armored health that is can work as like temp health. For a character like Venom, they can do certain abilities that will grant them massive chunks of health, or with Wolverine, where the more damage he does, the more health he gets. And for other characters, it can be like a lifesteal kind of thing. And while this video is a JJK dedicated video, every single other character we have done had to work within the bounds of an anime Rivals game. And so Mahito kind of still has that ramification. Still, we've been building some of his character sheet. And while in JJK, we only know of a couple characters who can target the soul, most notably Yuji in everything that he does. But in other anime, such as Naruto or Bleach, it very much is something they can easily do. They can perceive the soul, they can do soul damage. Characters from Naruto can even grab intangible things like their soul being grabbed out of them. They can grab that intangible thing and drag them. So that's so much higher scaling than anything in JJK. The idea would be that Mahito, in actuality, his health pool would be really, really low. Almost like one-shot territory. He's the weak strategist. But the majority of his health would be this armor. So most characters would be having to get through that armor. Let's say he has 150 health and then like 500 armor. And so if you had a team, a comp that would be filled with characters who don't do soul damage, you would then be doing, let's say, 40% damage to Mahito. You would have to go through the armor at a reduced rate. However, if you're playing a character like Yuji or Naruto or Ichigo, or these characters that can perceive the soul, or in their respective anime do an equivalent thing that is soul damage, then you would just go straight through, do the 150, and then you basically bypass his armor. A similar system was done for Gojo in the first video. It wasn't explained too well from memory. It was 11 months ago. I think something like this makes Mahito really, really fun in a when you're trying to envision comps. But the fun part of doing these types of pitching things is when you start trying to bundle characters together and see what stacks. You're thinking of Shikamaru and Megami, but then now you've got, okay, well, both of those don't do soul damage. Then you've got Mahito as a strategist, and you've got, Shikamaru as a strategist, and you start thinking, oh, okay. And you look at all the characters that we have. To me, that's where the fun of a video like this comes in, especially when you're going cross-verse. So if this does interest you, please go watch the other 2 videos that we did. Will is only in the first video for the Hunter x Hunter section, but me and him, I think, had a lot of fun doing this. So if you want to see more, also let us know down below. I'm sorry for interrupting Will's section. I'll let him continue on with the Mahito build. Back to you, Will.
In terms of his actual abilities, First and foremost, he is going to have a passive called the Embodiment of Human Hatred. And essentially how this is going to work is that Mahito's primary fire will leave a temporary debuff on enemies. And how this debuff works is that it will allow him to activate Idle Transfiguration on enemies, but he must meet certain requirements in order to do so. And we'll talk more about that when we get to Idle Transfiguration here in a moment. But another passive that Mahito will have is that basically he's going to have a built-in kind of double jump functionality, where after Mahito jumps, if he jumps again while still in midair, he will sprout wings and allow temporary flight until either he receives damage or he uses any other of his attacks or abilities. So it's just a way for him to kind of manifest some of that transformation within this Marvel Rivals state. Now, his primary fire is just going to be slow melee attacks. And again, it's these attacks that will apply that passive, which will allow him to use Idle Transfiguration. I know we might be getting a bit dense with the information here, but just bear with me. In addition to the primary fire, Mahito will have a secondary fire, which manifests in him transforming his arms into like bladed whips. And now these attacks will not activate the passive. They will not allow him to do Idle Transfiguration, but they'll give him some more range and a bit faster of attacks. Now, let's get into the actual Idle Transfiguration. And how this works is Mahito will only be able to activate this on an enemy if he's met the requirement of marking them enough. And how this will work is he needs 1 mark per 100 HP they have remaining, which means if an enemy has 100 HP or less, then he only needs 1 mark. If they have 500 HP, then he needs 5 marks on them. But if this condition is met, Mahito can activate Idle Transfiguration, which will reshape his target's soul, basically instantly killing them and turning them into a low HP transfigured human, which will basically be just a mindless drone that goes and attacks on Mahito's behalf. So this is really powerful, but again, Mahito has to reach the certain conditions to get there. Now, his second ability will be Body Restoration. And this is how Mahito can basically reshape his own soul to heal himself and also his allies. So how this works is if Mahito gets in melee range of an ally and stands still, then that ally will proceed to restore all of their health over a short duration. And there's no limit to this. Like if, all of Mahito's allies are around him, they will all be healed. And in addition to getting healed, this will also remove any negative effects that they have on them. And if Mahito does this with no one else around, then he will heal himself with this ability. Now, Mahito's third ability is called Transfigured Arsenal. And Mahito will be able to throw up to 4 transfigured dolls at once because this ability will have charges, up to 4. And these transfigured dolls are just like what happens when he uses Idle Transfiguration on an enemy. It creates a mindless drone that basically just goes and attacks Mahito's enemies. This is best served as a distraction to buy some time or just do a little bit of pitter-patter damage here and there. Now next, Mahito's fourth ability is the Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Killing. Now, this ability will have a very long cooldown because it's basically Mahito transforming into his true and perfect form. However, this ability will be locked upon a match beginning, and it will only become unlocked once Mahito manages to hit 2 black flashes. Now, this is also built into his passive. On his regular primary fire strikes, they just have a very small % chance to be a black flash, which means they'll do more damage. And again, if he manages to hit 2 of these within a match, that's when this ability will unlock. And if so, upon activation, he will transform himself into this true form and gain bonus health as armor and increase damage to his primary and secondary fires. And this form will remain until Mahito has lost all of this armor. And finally, that just leaves us with his ultimate ability, which is his domain expansion, the self-embodiment of perfection. Mahito will cast his domain and enclose an area around him. All enemies caught in this area are automatically marked by Mahito's passive for each second that they are within the domain. While his domain expansions is up, his first ability, Idle Transfiguration, will have no cooldown, and the domain expansion can only be removed by killing Mahito or by depleting its health from the outside. So essentially, this is just a countdown deathmatch, depending on how much health his enemies would have, right? Because they are getting a new stack of that passive every second, and as soon as they reach the 1 per 100 HP, he will instantly be able to execute them. So this thing is powerful.
So this marks the end of the anime safe section. When making this video, I was tossing and turning what we were gonna do, and I realized that doing a video right before season 3 and then not covering all the manga characters, and it was just a really tough situation. So from here on out, this is manga. This is including season 3, what will be season 4, and the ending of the show. If you have not read the manga, maybe still watch. I appreciate the watch time. Anyways, without further ado, here is Kenjaku, the mastermind behind all the stuff that happens in JJK to get one shot by Yuta. Now, we did have the idea what we're going to do with him and Geto, whether we're going to do 2 characters, 2 character sheets, but we thought that's a bit excessive, so we thought, alright, what if there was a skin variant where, yeah, look, Geto can't do a bunch of the stuff that Kenjaku can do, but it's just a thematic thing. Like, one of the skins would just be no fucking stitches across the forehead. That's enough. Have his JJK 0 look or his hidden inventory look, and that's good enough for this, I think. But his passive would be Cursed Spirit Manipulation. Whenever Kenjaku lands a takedown, he obtains 2 stacks of Cursed Spirits. Takedowns on enemy units that are not heroes grant 1 stack. Upon death, Kenjaku launches a random assortment of cursed spirits onto his enemies based on his cursed spirit stack stored at the time of his demise, expending them all. His primary fire would be short-range punches and kicks. Secondary fire would be a long-range miniature Uzumaki beam, with his first ability being cursed spirit summoning of a low stack, you know, like a not that strong. Some of the character sheets are really complicated. We're going to be having text of the exact wording of what it is. It may be confusing, but Gege doesn't even really know if he can actually recite his own power systems. So yeah, to make it into a video game, this will be very complicated. We've got Hakara coming up later. Fuck me, that one I don't know how we're gonna do. After pressing this ability, the player will be prompted to press the 1, 2, 3, or 4 key. Upon pressing a number, Kenjaku expends that amount of stored cursed spirits and summons a cursed spirit whose grade corresponds to the amount of cursed spirits expended. If Kenjaku does not have the required amount of stored, the ability is cancelled. How we do this on a controller, I have no idea, Crimson. We didn't talk about how a controller player would do it. That's for a developer to do, not us. And this is what we have. This is the rubric that we have. I don't need to say all of this. Just here's the text for it. Each grade of Cursed Spirit has increased HP and damage over the previous grade, with grade 4 and 3 acting as like turrets that remain in place, and then grade 2 and 1 Cursed Spirits charging at nearby enemies. On God, could you imagine if Loki turrets could charge at you? That would be freaky. Like, they already do that little thing, right? But imagine if they just started fucking sprinting at you. That'd be a little scary. His second ability would be Anti-Gravity System Reversal. Kenjaku applies knockdown to all enemies and deflects projectiles within a short range around him, and continuously applies the effect over 1 second. And his third ability is Reverse Curse Technique Protection. Kenjaku stops and summons a grade 2 Cursed Spirit that stands in place, blocking incoming damage, during which Kenjaku restores 80% of his missing health after 2 seconds. If the healing process is interrupted by receiving damage or crowd control, the process ends immediately and only restores 20% of his missing health. And then his ultimate would be a maximum Uzumaki. Kenjaku channels his cursed spirits into a massive barrage that explodes on impact, expending all of his stored curses, increasing the radius and dealing increased damage for each stack stored. Enemies killed this way will not grant Kenjaku any more stacks, because if he team wipes and then with this thing, he just instantly gets 12 stacks, which would be... that would be busted. And then we got a special note here that he didn't give him any special grade curses, because I'm unsure how I could have balanced around them, given they're basically as strong as playable characters. And look, I played a lot of ranked, a lot of you fucking suck. So yeah, these special grade characters would be way above your guys' pay grade. And considering a lot of them would have their own domain expansions, and we couldn't find anything to include like room profusion without making his kit just overloaded. So thought process was, we do this or that. That's kind of it, and we chose to give him the Uzumaki because that's kind of like his thing. Yeah, it's fun. That's kind of cool. Crimson then goes on and on about how room profusion actually we don't really know what it does, and for facts, and he needs certifiable, like, this is its thing for us to able to implement it. Don't worry, we've had a lot of arguments about it, but yeah, Uzumaki's cool. And for team ups, I was thinking, oh, maybe we can give him like a connecting to one of the villains that we did in our previous videos. And I was going to say Madara, but we didn't do Madara in the Naruto video. So, maybe we got to do another Marvel Rivals video. If you like this one, we'll do more Naruto characters, because, yeah, realizing we did no villains for Naruto is kind of fucked.
Let's talk about everyone's favorite teddy bear, Panda, who is actually not a teddy bear, but better described as an abruptly mutated cursed corpse. Now that is a mouthful. Really, all you need to know is that Panda was created by Principal Yaga with his own sorcery by basically combining a few different souls to result in the lovable panda we all know. So in Rivals, this man would be a vanguard, and his primary form of fire would just be the straight hands. We know that Panda wears those like boxing gloves from time to time, and he likes to get in the rough and rumble, so this just fits. Now, for his first ability, it would just be Cursed Energy Reinforcement, basically strengthening that primary fire, strengthening his physical attributes, his hits, becoming more durable, which would also result in reducing damage he takes for about 6 seconds. So this would just be something that you could spam every so once in a while to give yourself a general boost. His next ability would be Gorilla Mode, which is basically Panda switching from his Panda form to one of those other 3 souls that I spoke about earlier, and in this case, the Gorilla Soul. So Panda would switch to his brother's core, and this would last for 9 seconds and basically increase his damage and movement speed further, while also increasing the length of his primary fire, basically giving him more reach on his punches. In addition, these punches would now also apply the unblockable drumming beat, which is something that Panda could do in Jujutsu Kaisen, which means this damage would now penetrate through shields and have some knockback effect. Then finally, Panda's ultimate would be Triceratops mode, which would be switching to that third and final soul that he is composed of. So Panda would switch to his sister's core for the next 9 seconds, which would massively increase his damage, and change his primary to a ground slam effect that would deal AoE damage around him and knock enemies up in the surrounding area. But this would decrease Panda's own attack speed during this time. And while in this mode, Panda would be able to hold shift to enter a charging state, accelerating his movement and being able to like grab enemies on impact and slam them into nearby obstacles or terrain. And if he successfully was able to stun them into terrain, they would be stunned for 1 second.
Okay, now gets to the most complicated character in the video, Hakari, because always bet on Hakari. We all love this guy. He's a gambler. He's extremely stupid. What else is there not to love? Since the inception of this video, I've been going, Hakari has to be the Captain America stand-in, right? And I know I said at the start of the video we're not going to do this much, but he just is, right? He's the guy he doesn't die, he just gets hit, he's in there with his jackpot, he's borderline unkillable, and that just sounds so fun. Alright, before we get into Hakari's abilities, I just need to make this clear. I'm going to say PPLT and go over a lot of his kit. It's a lot of repeating of the same type of thing, but PPLT stands for Private Pure Love Train. Just yeah, get ready, this is a lot. His passive would be the Fever. Hakari has a Fever meter that fills up a small amount whenever he summons a green visual indicator, ability 1 or 2. A modest amount whenever he summons a red indicator, or a large amount whenever he summons a gold indicator. If Hakari summons a rainbow colored visual indicator or achieves 4 consecutive effects, his meter is filled completely. Hakari's Fever meter represents his increased odds to obtain a jackpot. Hakari can't generate a new visual indicator spin while one is ongoing. His primary fire would be just short range punches and kicks. His first ability, which is PPLT, Shutter Door, Hakari spins a pachinko machine with the possible odds of being a green, red, gold, rainbow, or a dud. Pressing the ability again during a spin stops it. If it stops on a color, Hakari then summons a pair of closing shutter doors of that color in front of him, stunning any enemy hit for 1 second and dealing a small amount of damage. If it lands on a dud, the ability is cancelled and all 3 of Hakari's abilities are put on a cooldown. His second ability is Reserve Ball. Hakari spins a pachinko machine with the possible odds of being green, red, gold, rainbow, or a dud. Pressing the ability again during the spin stops it. If it stops on a color, Hakari then aims and fires a reserve ball of that color, dealing damage on impact. If it lands on a dud, the ability is then cancelled and you get the pattern. All these 3 abilities are put on cooldown. His third ability, consecutive effort. Hikaru spins a pachinko machine with the possible... You get the idea of being a consecutive effect or a dud. Pressing the ability again during the spin stops. If it stops on the consecutive effect, Hikaru reverts any damage received, restoring to 100% of his missing HP. If it lands on a dud, all his abilities are put on a cooldown. An example of chances for each ability would be the following. Oh, I don't think I'm going to read this out. So on the screen, I'm just going to have for each ability what the odds are, like the chance. Yeah, like you get it. Crimson has gone and made it as fallable as possible, which all leads us to his ultimate ability, Idle Death Gamble. This ultimate has the unique property of filling up much faster than normal ultimates. Hikari manifests his domain expansion, causing him to enter stages, which give him a task to fulfill in order to spin for a character. The first stage is automatic, but after spinning for a character, Hikari must land a visual indicator, ability 1 or 2, on an enemy to advance to the next stage. Upon entering the next stage, the tasks Hikari may receive are the following. Take control of the point. Hold the point for 1 minute. Prevent the enemy from taking control of the point for 1 minute. Escort the convoy to a checkpoint. Prevent the enemy from reaching a checkpoint for 1 minute. Achieve a takedown. Stay alive for 1 minute. After Hikari's first spin, if he spins for a character and lands on one that wasn't the previous, the stage is reset and goes back to stage 1 to try again. If he spins and lands on the same character 3 times in a row, he achieves a jackpot and enters the unkillable mode. Dying or hitting a jackpot will end the Idle Death Gambit. Jackpot. Unkillable mode. For the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Private Pure Love Train's theme song, Admiring You, plays to all players in the match, increasing Hikari's movement speed, attack speed, and restoring 100% of his missing HP every second that same duration. Dying will cause the theme song to stop. After a successful jackpot, the next time Hikari enters Idle Death Gambit, he will have increased odds to achieve consecutive effects on his third ability while inside his domain. And that is Hikari's kit. That's everything. I think that's followable. I think that's balanced. That sounds cool. What do you think? For team-ups, look, again, in Naruto, we only did like 6-7 characters. Oh, for fuck's sake. One of the characters that we didn't do was Lady Tsunade, which... I think it would be really funny if we were to do another video to include her and have Hikari team up and have the pure luck and anti-luck, something like gambling related. If you could think of a good team up, you have to let me know. Like, you know, gamblers in anime, who are the most prolific? I don't know. When I'm thinking of gamblers, all I know is Tsunade and Hikari. But there's something here. I know there's something here.
Alright, next up we have another Vanguard, this time Yuki Tsukumo, one of the 4 special grade sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen, which means she is an absolute powerhouse, and that's because of her curse technique, Star Rage, or Bombaye as it's sometimes called. And to put it simply, what this does is it allows Yuki to add virtual mass to both herself and her Shikigami Garuda, who is kind of like a little snake looking thing, kind of like a miniature Onyx from Pokemon. And what that exactly means is that when Yuki throws a punch, the force of that punch is not represented by her actual mass. She can add on any amount of mass that she wants to, meaning Yuki is out here throwing punches like Saitama, which is ridiculous, which again is why she is one of 4 special grade sorcerers. So how is she going to work in Marvel Rivals? Well, the first thing we cooked up here is that she is going to have a passive ability called Reverse Curse Technique, which is the way sorcerers heal in JJK. Now in Rivals, this is going to take place when she ends up taking more than 20% of her overall HP in less than 2 seconds. So when she takes some burst damage, this will automatically activate and heal her for 50% of her missing HP. And that bonus health will last for 5 seconds, basically giving her a chance to kind of get out of dodge if she can. Now, in terms of her offense, this is where things get interesting, right? So for her primary and secondary fire, she is mostly going to be a melee character, throwing punches and kicks with the primary fire, and the secondary fire will be a more medium-ranged whip. But that whip will not be usable when she is using her first and second ability. So let's get into those. And the first ability here is called Garuda Kick, which Garuda again is her Shikigami, and what this looks like is he will curl up into a ball and then Yuki will kick him like a projectile toward an enemy, basically damaging them and knocking them back. Garuda will then stay at that final location and independently attack enemies in that area for a few seconds before returning to Yuka. Excuse me, not Yuka, Yuki. I've got the new sequel on the brain. But then next, her second ability will be called Garuda Suppress, and essentially Yuki will command Garuda to go after a chosen enemy and wrap around them, basically knocking them down and restraining them for 2 seconds. Then next, her third ability is where we get into the actual Star Rage and Bombardier. So Yuki will add Virtual Mass to herself and Garuda, basically increasing their damage output of everything, the primary fire, the secondary fire, and that Garuda kick for 6 seconds. And after the duration ends, Yuki restores 100% of damage received during the duration as HP. So any excess HP restored this way is converted into shields for her to then use afterwards. And then finally, her ultimate ability is Black Hole, which was also her ultimate ability in the series. And Yuki will continuously add Virtual Mass to herself in this circumstance, turning herself into a black hole, where there's just so much mass it eventually collapses in on itself. She will become intangible and start sucking in all enemy projectiles and nearby enemies when this happens, and this will deal 200 damage per second to herself and all enemies caught in it. After 4 seconds have passed or Yuki dies, Tengen appears and vanishes the black hole and saves Yuki. Basically, just kind of a Deus Ex Machina to prevent the entire world from ending from a black hole. Next up, we have a very polarizing figure in Jujutsu Kaisen, and that is none other than Naoya Zenin, world-renowned feminist. If you know, you know. But you know what? I will reserve judgment and let you guys decide once he is revealed and introduced in Season 3 of the anime, which is about to come out. But Naoya's curse technique is actually one we have seen before. It is projection sorcery, which is one of the inherited techniques of the Zenin clan, and one we have actually seen his father, Naobito, use in Season 2 of the anime. But don't worry, Naoya does have a unique spin all his own, and one that we are definitely going to play into for Marvel Rivals. And that's because, and spoilers beware for any of my anime onlys there, but Naoya becomes a vengeful curse spirit within the series, which means he is literally transformed into a cursed spirit upon his death. And we are going to take that and really run with it for his design here in Rivals. So first and foremost, Naoya is going to have the passive of Vengeful Curse, which means when he dies, he will return as a vengeful curse for a brief moment, which will basically give him bonus health, bonus damage, and a couple of new abilities that he can use. However, this ability is going to have a very long cooldown, so this will not activate on each and every of Naoya's deaths, but only the first, and then, like I said, every time the cooldown has expired thereafter. So we're going to talk about what Naoya can do in his normal form, and then we'll talk about what he can do in his Vengeful Curse form. So first and foremost, in his normal form, his primary fire will just be short range punches and kicks. And his primary fire as the Cursed Spirit will be more medium range tendrils that he can kind of lash out. Now, his ability in his human form is going to be Projection Sorcery, which we talked about earlier, and this is going to have a very low cooldown. Essentially, when Naoya activates this, he will greatly increase his movement speed, because the way this technique works is you basically get to map out the next frames of your movement, like an animation frame. So Naoya can decide, I'm going to be here, then there, then there, then here, and then he activates that and does it very quickly. But he can also force his opponents to follow these same rules. And that being thrust upon you, not expecting it, you're not going to know how to map out your movements. And if you fail to do what you mapped out, you get frozen in an animation frame for 1 second. So again, within Rivals, how this works is Naoya will activate it, and this will greatly increase his movement speed. And during this time, a 5-second window, he's going to have an alternating property applied to his primary fire, where one strike won't deal damage but will instead freeze his opponent on impact. within the next strike being a strike that does increase damage. And this will basically just cycle. So like a short stun, damage, short stun, damage. And if the opponent is not damaged when they are frozen in the frame, they will be kept in there for 3 seconds. But any damage that they take will break the frame and cause a little bit of additional damage and knock them back a bit. And that is essentially all Naoya will be able to do in his human form. It's good, but there's not much there. So really, his other abilities are unlocked in that vengeful curse form that we spoke of. So the first one he can do is acceleration mode. And in his curse form, he will retract his tendrils back into himself for a few seconds, sealing all of the gaps, basically making him, as aerodynamic as possible. And he will wind up a thrust and launch himself in a target direction, charging and pinning the very first enemy hit and dealing big damage on impact. And while in this curled up state, Naoya's primary fire is going to be disabled, but he gains increased damage reduction. Naoya can also damage enemies and deflect projectiles during the windup for this kind of cannonball strike. And then finally, his ultimate ability in this cursed spirit form is going to be the Time Cell Moon Palace, which is his domain expansion. So Naoya will cast this, manifesting an area around him, and enemies caught within it will receive massive damage with any movement they take, including casting any abilities or attacks, basically forcing them to stay in place and not do anything. However, Naoya himself can move and attack, but doing so would allow enemies in the area to do the same. Naoya is still susceptible to attacks from enemies outside the domain, which vanishes on his death. Heavenly restricted characters, however, such as Toji or Maki, are immune to the Time Cell Moon Palace. This ability is basically like, hey, you move, you're going to get really messed up. And Naoya can't move either, but he's in a much better position to just sit there while hopefully either his allies come in and force the enemies to move, force them to take damage, or someone destroys his domain from the outside.
Onto Maki, the only twin we are adding because the other one just shoots a gun a few times and does fucking nothing for the entire series. Look, that was a little harsh on Mai. Anyway, Maki, that makes the second Zenin clan member who happens to also be heavenly restricted. Now, we wanted to make her different from Toji, which is really difficult. From memory, we basically just went, Toji, Black Panther, yeah. So, with Maki, we're going to try our best. From looking at the character sheet, seems pretty fucking cool. Let us know if we did it justice, because it's pretty difficult to make two characters who are meant to be the spiritual successor different, but they use different weapons. So we'll say her primary fire would be medium range polearm strikes, and then her first ability would be Playful Cloud. Maki swaps out her current weapon to Playful Cloud. It's a medium range, same as the kind of the polearm for 5 seconds, boosting her damage output by 20%. Ability 2, Dragon Bone. Maki swaps out her current weapon to Dragon Bone, which is a little more short range for 5 seconds while equipped. Every swing builds up a kinetic force after 3 swings. Her next swing ignites Dragon Bone's engines, propelling her forward with brutal force, dashing in that direction and dealing critical damage to any enemy hit. Ability 3, we've given her the Soul Split Katana. Maki swaps out her current weapon to the Soul Split Katana. For 5 seconds, allows her to deal damage through armor, bonus health, and damage reduction. Damage dealt by this weapon is more difficult to heal than any other regular weapon. If you go back to previous videos, we were very trying to be careful with who gets bonus armor, who gets special types of things. That's where Infinity comes in. This is specifically targeting characters like that, who have Infinity, or like Giorno, or these characters who have invulnerabilities. This is a counter, with her ultimate ability being Heavenly Restriction fully realized. Maki's potential as a Heavenly Restricted becomes fully realized, granting her additional movement speed, attack damage, and damage reduction, and the ability to perform a triple jump, air jump, allowing her to catch flyers, that kind of thing. Maki retains these benefits until she is killed. And then for team-ups, I was just thinking, for some reason, I'm Naruto pilled. At the moment, my life is simply Naruto or Chainsaw Man, so the one team-up I had was with Sakura. I thought it'd be cute to have, pure black, pink, that kind of thing. I've got no abilities or anything on top of my mind. I just love the imagery and went, that could make some cool dialogue and fan art. That's all. Now we're on to Higuruma, one of the most gifted sorcerers next to Satoru Gojo himself, a fan favorite. And I love Higuruma, but I was always like, oh shit, how are we going to do this one? And so what do we have for Higuruma? His primary fire would be a short-range Gavel Strike, and then his first ability would be Gavel Enlargement. Higuruma's enlarges his gavel, increasing its range and damage output for the next few seconds. His second ability would be Gavel Extension. Higuruma extends his gavel's rod, turning it into a staff, greatly increasing its range for a few seconds. With his third ability being RCT Rush, Higuruma restores a small portion of his health and dashes to a nearby enemy. With his fourth ability being Domain Amplification, which we haven't done a lot of that. We haven't done a lot of domain amps across the JJK set, but Higuruma expands his domain around his body like an aura for a few seconds, neutralizing abilities that come in contact with him. With his ultimate ability, Deadly Sentencing, and I got warned, this is a very complicated one, so let's go. Ready? Higuruma targets an enemy and transports himself and the targeted enemy into his domain. Both Higuruma and his enemy are on podiums, with Higuruma's Shikigami, Judge Man, appearing to deliver sentencing. While in the domain, neither Higuruma nor his enemy can use any attacks, but Higuruma and the enemy will enter a QTE event where Higuruma attempts to convict the enemy while the enemy attempts to prove innocence. During this QTE event, it's basically reliant on whoever has the better timing to hit them the same keystrokes, but the Higuruma player is inherently favored as the person using Higuruma, and therefore it's used to the timings. Imagine this ult abducts the enemy, similar to ISO's ultimate in Valorant. Yeah, that was a big thing. We were looking at different hero shooters, different things, and we saw that, like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Once the sentencing has been given, be it innocent or a conviction, both players are returned to the game and his ult is charged back to 0. If the enemy achieves innocence, nothing changes from when they were entered into the domain. If Higuruma is successful in his conviction, the enemy has the highest number of kills on their team. They are sentenced with a confiscation and death penalty. Otherwise, they are only sentenced with a confiscation. Confiscation will first prioritize removing the enemy's weapon, should they be only using one, typically disabling their primary fire. If the enemy isn't categorized as using a weapon, they will have their abilities confiscated, preventing them from being able to use any. Confiscation lasts until the affected enemy is killed. Death penalty sentencing will grant Higuruma the Executioner's Sword, replacing his gavel with a short-range sword, which will insta-kill the sentenced enemies on contacts, but deal regular damage to other enemies. The Executioner's Sword will revert back to his gavel if the sentenced enemy dies. Wow, that was a lot. I tried my best to get that all out. That was a wordy ultimate. And for a team up, I think Law from One Piece would be good. Get it? Because the pun, Law. And
next up, we've got the god of lightning himself, Hajime Kashimo, the strongest of his era that struck a deal with Kenjaku in order to participate in the Culling Games because he was searching for a worthy fight, a fight where he could finally go all out and use his curse technique. And that's because Kashimo has a very unique technique in Jujutsu Kaisen, and that he can only use it one time ever because it will kill him. So this was a really fun idea to play with in terms of converting this to rivals, and I think we cooked up some cool stuff here. So first and foremost, in addition to his curse technique, which is called Mythical Beast Amber, Kashimo's cursed energy itself has a unique property in that it's electrified. So first and foremost, Kashimo is going to have a passive ability, which is Electrified Cursed Energy. And how this manifests is that Kashimo's attacks are going to be constantly electrified, which will basically shock enemies on impact and stun them for half a second. And Kashimo's primary fire is going to be him wielding his iconic staff, which will basically result in about medium range strikes. Now, as for his actual abilities, his first one is going to be Rod Throw, and this will be on a low cooldown. Kashimo will essentially launch his staff in a target direction as a projectile, and it will damage any enemies it hits. The staff will eventually continue until it jams into a piece of terrain, at which point it will then start serving as a lightning rod, and Kashimo's primary fire will turn into short-range punches until he goes and retrieves his staff. Now, his second ability is called Hollow Wicker Basket, and this will have no cooldown, but it will be an ability that must be held. And when he activates this, Kashimo will surround himself with a spherical shield that will prevent the effects or damage from domain-related abilities and attacks. Kashimo will not be able to attack while holding this ability, so essentially it's just a defense against other people's domains. Now his third ability is Lightning Discharge, and this will have a very long cooldown. But how this works is after Kashimo uses his rod throw, and his staff is out there serving as a lightning rod, he can send an electrical discharge from himself to his staff, and any enemy that is hit by that on its path of travel will be instantly killed. This will just be like a hit scan ability, and this is how he basically uses actual properties of physics in order for electrical charges to be attracted from positive to negative to basically make a sure hit attack that again travels between his staff and himself. Now finally, his ultimate ability will be Mythical Beast Amber. It will be him activating his technique. And when he does this, he will discard his staff and basically reconstruct his body out of electricity itself. This will change his primary fire into a long-range electromagnetic blast that he will fire both from his palms and his mouth. In addition, this new form will massively increase his movement speed. Basically, the only thing he will be slower than is literal teleporters. He will be zipping around the map. And finally, while he's in this state, his Lightning Discharge ability will instead just seek out the nearest enemy instead of having to be targeted at the rod. And this form, this Mythical Beast Amber form, will last for 38 seconds, at the end of which time Kashimo will die, because the technique does kill him. And the reason is 38 seconds is an allusion to the chapter in which Kashimo actually dies in the manga. All right, next we're switching things up with a strategist, and we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite big bro, Choso. He is one of the Cursed Wound death paintings in JJK, which means he is a highly unique entity in the series as he is half curse, half human. And his curse technique is blood manipulation, which is exactly like it sounds. He has the ability to manipulate blood, both inside and outside of his body. And so his entire toolkit in revivals is going to revolve around this. But before we get into that, very quickly, his primary fire is just going to be short range punches and kicks. Very simple. So now, the blood manipulation. And first and foremost, Choso is going to have a passive, which is just called Convergence. And how this works is basically every time Choso goes on to activate one of his abilities, first this passive will activate, which basically condenses his blood in order to maximize the effectiveness of whatever he's doing. And what that means is it will either provide more healing or more damage. However, if Choso is damaged while he's doing this convergence, then that output will be lessened. Less healing, less damage. This will make more sense when we get into the actual abilities, which first and foremost, we have his most iconic attack, Piercing Blood. This will be a medium cooldown ability that essentially allows Choso to shoot out a stream of his condensed blood that will last for 6 seconds. And Choso can basically freely aim this stream during those 6 seconds. And any allies that are hit with this will be healed. And any enemies that are hit with this will be damaged. And that damage will pierce through armor and shields. Now, any crowd control that happens to Choso will prematurely end this. And of course, Choso can prematurely end this himself if he would like to. Now, Choso's second ability is called Blood Meteorite. And essentially how this works is Choso will be able to put some of his blood on an ally or himself. And when this happens, for 4 seconds, they will get bonus health and damage reduction while that health is active. Then next, his third ability, probably his second most iconic, is Supernova. This will also be a medium cooldown ability, and Choso will spawn several orbs of blood at a nearby location. Then if Choso presses the ability key again, those orbs will detonate, dealing AoE damage and staggering any enemies that are hit. If Choso then uses Piercing Blood or Blood Meteorite while the orbs are active, Choso will absorb them and refresh the cooldown of that ability. So you basically don't have to commit if you put these orbs out. And then finally, Choso's ultimate will be Flowing Red Scale. And this is where Choso manipulates the blood within his own body, basically improving the flow of it for 10 seconds. This will increase his movement speed and the output of all of his abilities while it's active, and also increase the damage of his primary fire. It's basically just an overall buff. And if this ability is not interrupted during the convergence, it instead becomes Flowing Red Scale Stack, granting a slight boost to the previous benefits while also reducing the cooldown of his other abilities, functionally making them all go down from medium cooldowns to low cooldowns during the 10 seconds of his ult.
Okay, it's Yuta time, baby! The special grade sorcerer who has the biggest glow up from first and second appearances in the anime, and as descendant of the Sugawara clan, making him related to Gojo. So, that's a W, because Gojo is the best character in the anime. So basically, what I was thinking, this is where a lot of the disagreement between me and Crimson came in. Basically, as he is in the anime, he should be a duelist. Makes sense for him to be a duelist. He looks like a duelist, he has a sword, he kills a lot, duelist all through and through. However, he's also one of the only characters who has RCT and actually can heal other players. So it's like, oh, do we ruin our opportunity to have a actual canon character who can heal? And so basically our compromise was make him like Ultron, which is be a shitty healer, but he's still a healer. As seen in the anime trailer and in the manga panels, I want him to have aura. And then all the fun stuff with the copy technique with Rika makes him comparable to Loki, but then mixed with all that, it's basically Ultron if it was any good. However, Yuta can't actually use his copied abilities from the series, such as Curse Speech or Jacob's Ladder, because the idea that he'd be copying enemies in the actual match, and I also made his copy abilities and not ultimates, because that would be unbalanced as hell unless it was done with his own ultimate. But then we want to use his ultimate, which has the Field of Swords, which is way cooler, which lets him spam abilities he's copied over the match. But in case that wasn't strong enough, I also incorporated Rika's full manifestation into his ult. So while, as you see, Yuta will only have one main ability and then his ultimate, because Yuta having copy techniques, he will probably end up be the character with the most abilities in the game. But what are his abilities, you may be thinking? So his passive is the innate technique of copy. When Rika consumes the corpse of an enemy, Yuta obtains an additional ability which takes on the form of that hero's most used ability so far. This is the case up to a maximum of 6 total abilities, one for each unique hero, not counting Yuta's first ability or his ultimate. Yuta loses access to these upon death. Primary fire would be his medium range sword slashes, as you see in the anime, and his secondary fire would be short range RCT to heal allies, including Rika. Yuta restores health to himself after successfully restoring a certain amount of health to his allies. His first ability is Curse Technique, Rika. Yuta manifests the special grade Curse Spirit, Rika Orimoto, for a maximum of 5 minutes. Rika is an independent unit that stays by Yuta's side and will attack nearby enemies that damage Yuta. She will also consume the corpses of any heroes that are last hit by either herself or Yuta. Rika perishing will initiate this ability's cooldown. And his ultimate ability, Domain Expansion, Unlimited Blade Works, that's not right. Authentic Mutual Love. I don't know what the other one was. Yuta summons an area that appears as a Field of Swords, which Yuta can interact with to grab a single use ability amongst any of the ones he's copied over the duration of the match. Yuta cannot tell actually which ability is contained in each sword unless he grabs it. The area will progressively spawn more swords until Yuta dies. If Rika is manifested, which while the field is actually active, she is empowered, becoming fully manifested, increasing her damage output and her total health to 650. Rika also gains a long-range beam attack while manifested. And if we're going to be mean to Megami, we've got to be mean to Yuta. It's only fair. For team-ups, we got nothing other than maybe Shinji, because they're both kind of bitches. And then lastly, we have Angel, who is an incarnated sorcerer with a busted ability. Other than that, it's one of the characters I don't really care for, but has a really cool enough kit for a hero shooter, and is actually a perfect counter to someone like Yuta, to be honest. So how would she play? Angel is kind of like the panda of this doc, with a few abilities, but is simple, straightforward gameplay. She goes around healing people and prevents enemies from using their abilities. Angel will have the ability to basically free flight. Her primary fire are long-range beams of light that can heal allies and then damage enemies, with the first ability being Technique, Extinguishment. Hana blows a trumpet in a target's direction, sending several crosses of light, damaging any hit enemy and restricting their abilities, preventing their usage for 5 seconds. Her second ability, Rescue, increases her flight speed for a couple seconds, additionally increased when flying in the direction of a damaged ally. With her ultimate ability, Maximum Output, Jacob's Ladder. Angel targets an area on the floor. After blowing her trumpet, she summons a massive pillar of light on the area that lasts a couple seconds, greatly damaging enemies inside while massively healing any allies inside over the duration. Any enemies struck by the pillar of light will have an extended restriction of their abilities, preventing their usage for 10 seconds. An editor's note, we don't really have this character in here, but with a true form Sukuna or Sukuna that we did in our first video, any version of Sukuna should be able to climb this. I think that's really funny. So we've done 2 videos now, and there is a ton of JJK characters. And so I just want to have a little section where me and Will can speak and have a few questions about some of the things that we want to see or things that we love about what we've done so far. And the first thing I've got to say is, who are our favorite characters? And this goes for you guys too in the comments section. Let us know who your favorites are. For me, obviously Gojo and Yuji from the last video. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that because they're kids. Some of the most fun that we've ever done out of all of the anime we've covered. But for this video, Yuta being like that Ultron strategist who also is a duelist in disguise, I just love Yuta. Like that, this is like you have the slander, you have Yuta being able to have the sword and healing. He's one of the only strategists that makes sense to be a strategist. That Yuta's probably my favorite from this video.
Listen, I'm here for all the Yuta glaze because the slander has gotten ridiculous recently, and it's so undeserved. So I'm glad that we can kind of lift him up a little bit here. I'm right there with you. Yeah. Gojo from the first video was so cool. Like it was so, and I mean this in the best way, like complicated, which only makes sense for the Limitless. So you absolutely cooked with that one. But this time around, first and foremost, the Higuruma domain thing is such a cool concept. And Higuruma is one of my favorite characters from upcoming season 3, so I can't wait to see him. So I love that. I also really like Kashimo, which I kind of give Kashimo a lot of disrespect, mostly because I think Yuta beats Kashimo, which kind of goes back to the Yuta slander that people are on. But I do think just using Mythical Beast Amber would be so like satisfying and fun. Yeah. So huge fan of that. And then I'm probably gonna get some slander for myself on this one, but Naoya, like, don't agree with the character, don't like the character, but projection sorcery would just be so cool to use. Like, I'm very much in my playstyle of games, like I like the agility based like hero, like I like darting around the map, I like getting fast, like, so those are some of my favorites. Okay, so Charles, assume that there is a standalone JJK hero shooter type of game. If they made something like that, what do you think would be like a cool, unique mechanic that they could introduce, kind of like Marvel Rivals team-ups or like, loadouts or the battle pass from Fortnite? Like, what's something you think that they could do to really make this shine and like feel JJK?
Yeah, like, and I know this is kind of touching like manga stuff, but when you hear JJK and you hear the culling games, it's like what the hell, like this is such an interesting unique idea within like a manga. I'm like, okay, cool. And then you have a game to just have push the cart would be like, I feel almost like a little lackluster. So somehow incorporating a culling game style mode, and maybe you pull from like MOBAs where there's like AI on the map, and like there's like different zones that you can go to or teleport to, and it's a bit bigger and more about map control. But when we're thinking about how, like, some of the biggest fights are like city fights, that's where domains can come into it, and maybe a longer style round-based thing that can go to different zones. It's not really a full idea, but I think with how fast some of these characters are, it's the only way you're going to be able to capture, like maybe like Smite, where it's less so about the top-down, but it's more like you're playing a character. That's what's in my head. Like a full, like, hero shooter, MOBA, which has been done before, but they've all kind of sucked. But like culling games, like I think that's where this flourishes.
Dude, I did not even think of that, but like a JJK MOBA would be so sick. Like you could just delete like 10,000 hours out of my life if that really existed. That would be so fun. I love that idea. It would be so fun to have, like, obviously you could have like the heroes be the characters, but it would be cool, like, obviously people have their own abilities, but like your own talent tree, like within that, like, are you going to specialize in mastering your cursed energy, or are you going to go for domain refinement, whatever the case may be.
So
like
sick, though. Like,
it just sounds so fun. Also, like, I don't know how you would do it necessarily, but like figuring out a way to make Black Flash like actually happen. Like, I don't know if it's just like a random chance type of thing or how you like play into it, but and then somehow like getting, 120% of your potential. Like, there's so many cool like ways that you could really like make it feel like you were a sorcerer, I guess.
Absolutely.
Sounds lame, but
no, that's actually sick because like we the big thing over the 3 videos we've done on this is we've tried to keep consistent language the same way a game, if they were suddenly changing up, going from bonus health, armor, and like all these things had different meanings. Crimson, who worked on all like the character sheets and making sure the language was accurate, and we still, performing have probably made mistakes, right? But like, it's been really difficult to have these massive videos and keeping things consistent. But to try and make something like Black Flash work across various characters and stay consistent and be fun and, you know, like the concept of Black Flash then also like increases your power level and like how strong you are. And it's like, oh, like, you know, like, technically all sorcerers can do it. So every character in the game should be, but it's like, but then it kind of breaks it. And so, yeah, making that work as well as like the 120% of your potential, that'd be sick.
I think we need to make this game because now I'm not going to be satisfied until I have the JJK MOBA.
Well, we have that. Was it the fighting game that came out 2 years ago?
Oh my god, Cursed Clash or something like that.
Clash.
They tried, I guess. Did they? I don't know.
That honestly sounds like such like a fun game to play, and doing these videos on JJK, like we're big JJK guys, like. This is awesome, but I'll be lying if there isn't an itch to talk about other anime and doing like a hero shooter. So if you could have a dedicated hero shooter for your anime of choice, what would they be?
Ooh, okay. Well, and I might be kind of like thinking too linear here, but hero shooter, I go to like animes where the main character, wields a gun. So the first place I go is Trigun. Like Vash the Stampede is one of my favorite MCs of all time. So I would love to see that. Spike Spiegel, Cowboy Bebop, like I'd love to see him. But kind of getting away from the shooter specifically, I think it would be awesome to see Ippo from Hajime no Ippo. That's like my favorite sports anime of all time. And then finally, like if I could get Simone, the Digger from Gurren Lagann, and forgive my pronunciations there, but I want the drill that pierces the heavens, and I need to kill somebody with that. So those would be my choices, I guess. But what about you?
Those picks are generally insane. Like, for people who are watching, I had a notepad, and I was thinking, Will's going to say Hunter, Hunter. What else could he say? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then he's picked, these awesome picks. I'm like, that just as good. Hunter, yeah, but these awesome. For me, I'm kind of more basic. Like, you picked, some niche shit, but, actually, good stuff, like Cowboy Bebop. Like, okay. I just wrote JoJo and Naruto because Hey,
classics.
Like, we did a Naruto video, a Naruto section in part 2, and we had only one antagonist in Itachi. And I went to, in one of my sections, you wouldn't know this, and I was going to do a team-up with Kenjaku. I was like, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to connect it to a Naruto villain. Oh, we didn't do any. We didn't do Madara. We didn't do Obito. We didn't do. Oh, jeez, awesome. So I would love to do a full thing on Naruto or JoJo's JoJo. Like that's it. Kind of makes itself. I think JoJo has a battle royale game in Japan, so it's like
it does.
Yeah, I saw a video on TikTok and it was like JoJo, they're landing onto Morio, and I'm like,
I'm gonna have to check that out.
I'm like, what the? I have to be getting paid. It's like 6 months ago. And I was like, this is sick. But yeah, JoJo and Naruto are my picks.
I'm still making my way through JoJo's, so I'm not the most knowledgeable, but just thinking about stands, that would be so cool. I could totally see that. That seems like it would translate really well.
And then to see how the Harmon users would connect to the stands, and part 2 Joseph is when you break down what he's doing, it's that is messed up, right?
Absurd,
and also funny. So the emotes, if you had team ups for JoJo's.
Oh my god.
The parent, because obviously there's the buddy system, all the JoJo's have their friends, but to go cross parts, that'd be sick. But
that would be incredible.
These are our picks, but me and Will are curious what you guys would think, right? I'm still very new to anime. I'm not the most knowledgeable, so I'm really curious what niche stuff that you guys could come up with. So
let us know.
And that is our vision for a Jujutsu Kaisen Rivals. There are a metric ton of characters that we didn't cover, especially from the Culling games, so if we didn't find time to go over your favorites, please let me and Will know down below on how their characters could look up and how they would shape, and what other anime also you would want to see done in this hypothetical hero shooter format like this. I might see if Will is interested again in being a part of doing another video, or maybe we get some other anime YouTubers to jump in. It's all up to you guys and what you want to see, so just let us know. Other than that, I just have to thank my patrons for helping support the channel, and make sure to subscribe to both mine and Will's channel. And we both have our Discord, so please join those. Will does these amazing watch parties, as he's doing one right now. The mod team runs it for the new season of JJK. So every time a new episode drops, they do a watch party, and it's a ton of fun. So please go join that. It's a ball. Again, thank you to Will for taking part in this. You are the bloody best, mate. And so take care. I'll see you guys in the next one.